Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to This Explainer, where we're going to unpack the absolutely fascinating deep roots of a true global icon in his birthplace, the island of Madeira. You know, it's actually been 25 years since Cristiano Ronaldo left his boyhood club to chase a professional career on the mainland. But to really understand the man who has shattered practically every record in football history, we have to look past the bright lights of Madrid, Manchester, and Turin. We need to look at the island that built him.
And right away, there's just a stark contrast between the myth and the reality of Cristiano Ronaldo. Setting that up is kind of the whole theme of our explainer today. On one hand, you've got the modern icon, a 37-year-old, global, billionaire megastar with a brand that completely transcends sports. But then, on the other hand, you have the gritty reality of where he actually started. We're talking about a hungry local boy growing up in relative poverty, someone who famously had to rely on handouts from local McDonald's staff just to get a meal. The gap between those two realities is absolutely staggering. And bridging that gap? Well, that's what makes his origin story so incredibly compelling.
Welcome to Ronaldo's Island, and what we might call the modern myth.
To understand the player, we first have to wrap our heads around the surreal reality of Funchal, Madeira's capital as it stands today. When you step off the plane in Madeira, the presence of Cristiano Ronaldo is immediate. It's overwhelming. You literally land at an international airport named in his honor. You walk right past that famous, much-discussed bust outside the terminal, head down into the city, and boom, there's a statue definitively declaring him the best player in the world, alongside giant murals looking down on the streets, proudly labeling him a son of the land. The entire island functions almost like a living, breathing shrine. Actually, if you head down to the Funchal Marina, you can visit his dedicated museum, and you might even spot his mother casually grabbing her morning coffee there. It's a level of hometown hero worship that is just wild to think about.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the strange, almost jarring juxtaposition inside that very museum. You've got these massive, globally recognized trinkets of glory from his days at Manchester United sitting right next to tiny, scuffed-up trophies he won in minor boyhood tournaments on the island. Plus, there's this wall tracking what they call the 7 ages of Ronaldo. Most football fans out there think his story started at Sporting CP in Lisbon. But on this wall, Sporting is only the 3rd age. His global story is deeply, permanently anchored in local island pride.
Section 2. Where the legend began, and the true timeline.
Let's peel back the curtain on that global superstar narrative and look at the gritty reality of his actual childhood. This is the real flow of his early career. Long before he was a household name, way before he was dominating the Champions League, he was just a kid from the streets of the Santo Antonio neighborhood in Funchal. He started out at a small amateur side called Andorina. Then at age 10, he moved to CD Nacional, which is one of Madeira's biggest clubs. It was only after that period that he made the jump across the ocean to Sporting CP for his professional debut. Understanding this timeline is absolutely crucial because those first 2 stops, that's where the raw talent was truly forged.
And you've got to hear this incredible detail. Talk about the ultimate bargain. When Ronaldo was just 10 years old, CD Nacional realized they had a total prodigy on their hands. So they snaffled him away from his first club, Andorina. The transfer fee? No way, it wasn't millions. It was just an exchange of some football equipment. What makes this even more amazing is that Ronaldo's own father was actually the kit man at Andorina when this trade went down. It's a beautifully humble beginning for a guy who would later break world record transfer fees involving tens of millions of dollars.
10. That is the age we are talking about here, and the absurdity of his talent was already completely obvious. At just 10 years old, grown adult referees were already gossiping among themselves about this kid's abilities on the pitch. The whispers were already starting to ripple through the entire city of Funchal.
12. Now we build the awe factor even further. By the time Ronaldo is 12 years old, he wasn't just playing against boys his own age anymore. He was routinely put up against 16-year-old opponents. And the most shocking part, those older teenagers who are physically bigger and much stronger had absolutely no idea how to stop him. The skill gap was already totally insurmountable.
There's a story from Narciso Chavez, a Funchal tour guide, that perfectly captures that era. He remembers standing next to a young teenage Ronaldo in a local nightclub. Even back then, before any professional contracts were even signed, locals were pointing at this kid and telling Chavez that the boy standing next to him was going to be the world's next superstar. The writing wasn't just on the wall, it was literally the talk of the town long before the rest of the world ever knew his name.
Let's move on and see how this builds, because that early hype isn't just a memory. Today, it's actively used as a teaching tool. João Hugo Vieira, a current youth coach at CD Nacional, explains it perfectly. He says Ronaldo is clearly an example and inspiration for young players, an example of hard work and overcoming adversity. Coaches like Vieira use Ronaldo's story not just to teach football, but to motivate local kids in life. They point to his work ethic and how he overcame the intense adversity of poverty on a small island to show these kids that literally any obstacle can be conquered.
Section 3. Inspiring Madeira's youth and the Nacional legacy. So, let's look at how a club he played at for merely 2 years has completely immortalized him. CD Nacional is just an incredible case study in legacy. Ronaldo was only there for 2 years as a child, right? But the club uses that brief stint as an absolute marketing gift. If you go up to their stadium shop high in the mountains, you'll find a mocked-up Ronaldo club membership card. His childhood photos are plastered everywhere, from the museum all the way to the city center offices. They've even officially named their training complex after him. Every single day, children play on pitches right next to the Estadio da Madeira, running around on the very same grass where their hero started, hoping against hope to be the next him.
And you know, the respect definitely goes both ways. Ronaldo himself is quoted as saying, "This is where it all started in my career. It gives me pleasure and pride that my name is associated with the Academy of CD Nacional." That quote is proudly displayed right on the walls of that very training ground. It really cements a mutual gratitude. The global star acknowledges his local roots, giving the club the ultimate endorsement. And in return, the club gives its young academy players a daily, visual reminder of true greatness.
But we do have to address a pretty harsh reality here. As Coach Vieira notes, the talent on the island of Madeira is absolutely there. There's gold in those hills. But the market, the competition, and the opportunities for genuine visibility are incredibly small compared to the mainland. To truly succeed at the highest levels of professional football, players simply must leave the island. And this isn't some new phenomenon either. Ronaldo had to leave at 12, just like the great Artur Pinga had to leave way back in 1930 to become a legend at Porto. The island nurtures you, sure, but eventually you have to cross the water to grow.
Section 4. Outgrowing the island and the price of stardom. So what does his relationship with Madeira actually look like today, and what does the future hold? Well, it's a really complex mix of global celebrity and local family. He does return occasionally for festivities, to see his mother and relatives, and to be present for major island events. But as our source material impartially points out, there are mixed feelings among some of the locals. There is immense, undeniable pride for sure, but there are also quiet whispers wondering if the island's most famous son could do a bit more for the place that raised him. On the flip side, others point out his incredibly difficult childhood and ask, well, what did the island truly do for a hungry boy relying on fast food handouts? It's a fascinating, highly nuanced dynamic between a billionaire and his humble hometown.
So, the crucial point is this. When Ronaldo finally decides to hang up his boots, Madeira is likely not going to be his final stop. Places like Manchester, Madrid, Milan, or perhaps a sunny, glamorous life in Miami, those are all far more likely retirement destinations. He just operates in a totally different stratosphere now. He simply isn't expected to return to the quiet, slow-paced life in Funchal. Even though his presence looms incredibly large over the island, his daily reality has moved far, far beyond it.
I want to leave you with this provocative question. Can a global icon ever truly return home when, in so many ways, he outgrew the island at just 12 years old? It really forces us to ponder the ultimate price of unimaginable fame. Cristiano Ronaldo's journey from a hungry local boy trading for football equipment to a permanent global legend with his literal name on an airport is without a doubt one of the most incredible stories in modern sports. Madeira will always be his foundation, but the world is his home now. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this deep dive gave you a whole new perspective on the true origins of greatness.